President Trump's declaration of a national emergency, the Democrats and radical leftists in Washington are rallying together in opposition. Over a dozen states so far have jumped on the bandwagon to oppose the president's efforts to defend our nation's borders. But rather than take the mainstream media's word that our borders are under control and that President Trump is just manufacturing a crisis, we decided to head down and see for ourselves exactly how bad the situation at the border really is. We set off from San Diego, California, heading south. It's just a 20-minute ride from downtown to the border with Tijuana, Mexico. Joining me was Chris Harris, a retired Border Patrol agent and former police detective from New York. With over 36 years in law enforcement, Chris explained that not only is there a crisis, but that things are getting worse. Our first stop was to the Mall of Las Americas, an upscale shopping outlet just a few dozen yards from the third world.
That agent in this is what prevents hundreds of people from pouring in.
So there's nothing on the other side of this embankment.
That's the river. That way, there's another fence, the bollar fence. But where the river comes through, if they're smart and they're not stupid, they just come through the river
And they can run up the hill.
This is it.
And they can jump over this right here.
They do it all the time.
Can I pull myself up and look over? Those are sharp.
I'd be careful.
So that's all it would take, right there. 2 seconds. You can hop right over.
That's it.
That's it. That's nothing.
We want this replaced. It doesn't have to be a 30-foot concrete wall, but it could be a 16 or 18-foot much better fence that the kind you build around, rich people's enclaves or prisons
or senators'
or
houses
whatever. That's what we need. The fence's job is to help us do our job better. And our job is to protect the United States and the people that live in the United States. And so this helps us do it, and it keeps us safe.
Next, we headed over to a nearby estuary where, despite the added security, there's still a massive environmental problem. Runoff from Mexico floods the U.S. side of the border with raw, untreated sewage, essentially turning the beautiful Tijuana River Valley into an open toilet. Just last December, a leak on Tijuana's side dumped 7 million gallons of raw sewage into California every single day. The U.S. has tried to combat this problem, and in the early 90s built a state-of-the-art sewage treatment plant at a cost of nearly $400 million in today's money.
We treat Mexican sewage. Now, I know why, because if we didn't, it'd be even more raw sewage and chemicals flowing into this country. But they're not doing it. We do it. We operate that plant. IBWC contracts out to Veolia. 25 million gallons per day. We treat Mexican sewage in a plant we built.
Wildlife, such as these birds, are forced to make their homes in Mexican sewage and chemical runoff, which includes astonishingly high levels of toxic substances, including uranium. And this is a wetlands habitat protected by U.S. law, where a number of endangered species make their homes. Chris says that his agents frequently are treated for chemical burns after chasing illegal aliens through the fields and having the runoff literally melt their boots.
My guys get sick all the time. I got pictures of a guy, his feet with chemical burns on them. The boots were falling apart, dissolving. That's not sewage, that's chemicals. So the chemicals come in, the toxic waste, pesticides, all that kind of stuff comes in. This floods out. My men and women have to work in this. When we catch people, we interview them. They've been told to go into this stuff to elude and evade capture, so we go into it to get them. So my guys get contaminated. Literally, you can come right through the Tijuana River Valley and never hit a fence. Straight through, here, poof, you disappear. And to say walls or fences don't work is the height of idiocy. In California, we passed laws that you have to build fences around schools. Why? If they don't work, why are we doing it? Because they do work to protect the kids. We still build them around military installations. We still build them around prisons. When you build a bank, it's not an open pavilion. There's a big walls or safes. Bill Gates and other people, they have compounds with walls. The reason why? Because they work. Are they infallible? No. That's why you have armed guards, armed security, armed correctional officers, armed border patrol agents, armed military.
It's the first line of defense.
It's defense in depth. And that's what works. And to say that we don't want that now, I don't get that at all. I don't understand that.
Chris then pointed to an area near the border where new fencing was being built, not by California companies, but by contractors in Texas. That's because Democrats in Sacramento introduced a bill threatening to prevent any companies that worked on President Trump's border wall from doing business in the state. It's called SB 30, and it would effectively block those companies from getting any contracts with the state of California.
But that's the area right now, those trailers and that's that company from Texas.
Right.
That got the bid to replace the primary fence that's right on the border that was programmed under President Obama in 2012. Yet we couldn't get any California state contractors to bid on it because they've been told that if they do, the possibility exists they'll lose their state contracts. So nobody in the state bid on it. So who bid on it? Texas, a company from Texas. So instead of $153 million going to South Bay, most of that money now is going into Texas. And that wasn't the wall. That was programmed with President Obama. So again, that speaks to this idiocy, this lunacy of a hatred toward an inanimate object that is built to protect you.
They're cutting off their own nose to spite their face.
Exactly.
We drove down a scenic road just below the border, spotted with horse ranches and farmhouses. But Chris told us that living next to the border, there's a much darker side to these picturesque homes, revealing just how ruthless the Mexican cartels can be.
One of those ranches where we did a raid, a joint raid, and they found the 55-gallon drums buried with the dissolved remains of people in them.
Oh my!
That was several years ago. So they call them polleros, the soup makers. The cartel uses these guys, and they execute somebody or kill them, dismember them, put them in the drums, fill it with the acid, and seal them up. And it turns into a sludge.
Finally, we took a road up to the top of a hill overlooking a steep ravine into the Mexican side of the border. There were two fences protecting the border, with a lone Border Patrol vehicle keeping an eye on the valley. Chris says these new fences have helped immensely in not only keeping illegal aliens out, but in preventing drug smugglers and human traffickers from getting through.
You cannot drive through here, do a drive-through like they used to do at all. That's done.
And so that's keeping drugs and human trafficking and stuff out of American communities.
That's keeping, that example I gave was narcotics. That was hard narcotics. So that's keeping them out of your community. That's keeping out any bad guys, be it, there's a gamut of bad guys. There's just criminals, there's cartel, there's gangbangers, and there's terrorists. People that want to do harm to this country. This helps us stop them. You can see over there that we're replacing the old 8-foot-high fence with that new fence. That was, again, approved and programmed under President Obama, a Democrat. Nobody had a problem with that. Does anybody see the hypocrisy there, or the dichotomy or the schizophrenia of saying it's all bad, but yet that fence is going up was programmed and funding started in 2012? If it was okay then, why isn't it okay now?
So these huge numbers of asylum seekers we're seeing coming through, like 600% up in San Diego last year, that could be a very ominous sign that a lot of drugs and other things are coming through as well.
I would suggest that any smart cartel people, and they're smart, are using that as a subterfuge, as what we call a draw, to get through things across while we're tied up doing that, yeah.
Visiting the border was incredibly eye-opening to the kinds of dangers faced by our Border Patrol agents every day. It's clear the kind of short-sighted political grandstanding we're seeing from our leaders in Washington is intended to impress voters and make for some good sound bites on evening television as we head into the next election. But these politicians don't live in the communities affected by their decisions. They don't have a stake in their own policies, and that's a problem.
But you have people, there's congressmen, congresswomen calling for the demise of ICE and Border Patrol. So do I think we're going to go back to those days? Yeah, I think we're heading back to those days. And it makes me very nervous. I don't know how any country can survive in that paradigm.
All right.
It makes me very nervous, my friend. I'm very nervous for our Constitution and our form of government. And the rights and liberties we're taking for granted by a lot of people.
As long as the members of Congress put their political careers and their hatred for President Trump above the people they serve, Americans will continue to suffer and die, all for their public image. On American News, I'm Pearson Sharp.